All right, my speaking slot is between our mayor and the judge. Barry, that's normally a pretty uncomfortable spot for a plant manager, but certainly not in this area, in this arena. What a great way to start a meeting, the day, or certainly a forum when we show our faith in the state, our faith in our country, and our faith in God. So nice job, guys. We are missing, I see a lot of friends here today, and it makes me feel very comfortable. We are missing some friends today, unfortunately. Our friends, we have some people over in Louisiana that are really working through some tough stuff with the floods. I know they are in your prayers and thoughts, and certainly in your resources. So this is a two-day conference. So I think that this is the 7th year of the conference, and the way that egg was hatched, if I remember correctly, was after the conference last year, a few people gathered around a table, and likely after maybe 1 or 2 glasses of wine, they talked about all the content that we had in last year's forum, and we recognized that there was just too much for one day. So it's grown to a 2-day conference. And I have a question for the group today. I don't want you to raise your hand, but I want you to think about this. If you've heard the term before, strategy is navigational. Strategy is navigational. I'm going to come back to that in just a few minutes. So our theme for the 2 days, 10 words: globalization of the Gulf Coast, positioning to reach the world. So globalization of the Gulf Coast. So population of the globe, about 7 billion people. United States, about 300 million. I think if you take a pencil to that, that's about 4% of the world's population in the United States. It's always amazed me how influential the United States has been, especially since World War II, and now how influential the Gulf Coast is, especially in this industry, globally. Positioning to reach the world. I think the key word there is positioning. We don't have it all figured out. We've kind of got a vector, a line that we're on, but it's exciting to position that in truly in a world economy. For many of us, our businesses are very global, and if you're servicing this industry, you're servicing very global companies. And for many of us, we get the privilege to travel around to meet our customers, to meet our suppliers, to be at our plants across Europe and throughout Asia, certainly in North America and through parts of South America. And as we get an opportunity to do that, we get an opportunity to meet those people. I'm going to talk a little bit about that before I hand the baton over. Looking at our agenda today, we're going to have an opportunity to talk about energy export and global chemicals. So that's kind of interesting, because think about just maybe 5 years ago. We weren't talking about energy export, we were talking about energy import. And the globalization of the chemical business 5 years ago, for many of us downstream people, we were really trying to determine where we were going to be in this global footprint, because things were shrinking significantly for the United States. So coming back to navigation and strategy is navigational. Our strategy 5 years ago, a different strategy than today. Today's strategy, much more exciting, much more about growth, a passion for that. And I think that will be the kind of the theme and the enjoyment that we have around that today. Speaking of navigation, of course, we have Port of Houston. We're going to get an opportunity to hear from leadership at the port. Very interesting, right? Because we have a port that is the largest port in tonnage in the United States, and the only port that exports more than we import. Very unique, right? Tells us about the place that we're at, where we actually export more than we import. And then also today, we have the privilege to have 2 of our congressmen for the area who represent us, Congressman Green and Babin, that will be here and tell us about the activities in Washington. There will be a lot of thank yous over the next day and a half. The first thank you that I would like to extend is the sponsors. So the Port of Houston is our presenting sponsor, JV Driver, our platinum sponsor, but there's 44 other sponsors in the gold, silver, and bronze area, 46 total. So if you could give those sponsors, please, a round of applause. Well, the last few words I would like to leave with you before I announce and introduce Judge Roy Meese to come up. In fact, Roy, if you could come up now, that would be great. You know, when you look at the resources that we have in the Gulf Coast, it's pretty impressive, right? When you go by any of these plants, you recognize that there's billions and billions of dollars of infrastructure. In fact, one of the things we talk about now is $50 billion of new capital. That's amazing. So we have this large footprint of capital, and we have a large supply chain. We're going to be talking about that tomorrow. But maybe when you compare this area around the world, and maybe some of the things that we get a chance to see as we contrast with our other plants, is really the people. And you know, I think, you know, personally, in 1981, when I was a young engineer getting out of graduate school, and I came here to the Ship Channel, and you know, I was one of those guys probably thought I knew quite a bit until the maintenance guys and the operators really taught me how a plant runs. But at that time, I had a very sharp plant manager, and he said, well, Jim, you know, where your learning is the books you read and the people you meet. And what I would suggest to this group here of about 800 people is the people around you today, please take those opportunities to meet each other, to network, to get to know each other. A lot of your businesses connect up, and there's just a lot of potential in this room today. So I'm honored to chair the Economic Alliance this year and next year. It's a privilege. And with that privilege, I'd like to turn it over to Roy.